The Story of an Hour Summary. Hello everyone, and welcome to this video on The Story of an Hour by Chopin. In this video, we'll be discussing the plot, themes, and literary techniques used in this short story. Firstly, let's start with a brief summary of the plot. The story is set in the late 19th century and focuses on the character of Louise Mallard, a young woman who suffers from a heart condition. The story begins with the news of her husband's death, which is brought to her by her sister and her husband's friend, Richards. Louise reacts to the news in a strange way, initially weeping uncontrollably but then gradually feeling a sense of freedom and relief. As she sits alone in her room, Louise begins to contemplate the possibilities of a life without her husband. She realizes that she is no longer bound to him and that she can now live for herself. She experiences a newfound sense of joy and freedom, which is symbolized by the open window in her room. She can hear birds singing and see the new spring growth outside. This is contrasted with the darkness and repression that she had felt in her marriage. However, just as she is reveling in her newfound freedom, her husband appears at the door, having not died after all. Louise is shocked and devastated by the news, and she dies of a heart attack. The final line of the story, "She had died of heart disease, of joy that kills," implies that Louise died not because of the shock of her husband's return, but because of the crushing disappointment of losing her newly discovered freedom. Now let's move on to the themes of the story. One of the most prominent themes in The Story of an Hour is the idea of freedom and independence. The story shows how marriage can be suffocating and oppressive, especially for women in the late 19th century. Louise's brief taste of freedom shows that women were capable of much more than just being a wife and mother, and that they deserved to live their lives on their own terms. Another theme in the story is the idea of mortality and the fragility of life. Louise's heart condition is a constant reminder of her own mortality, and her sudden death at the end of the story highlights just how fragile life can be. The story also suggests that happiness can be fleeting and that even the smallest taste of it can be dangerous. Finally, let's look at the literary techniques used in The Story of an Hour. One of the most notable techniques is the use of irony. The news of Louise's husband's death initially brings her great sadness, but as she begins to realize the freedom it brings, her emotions shift to joy. The irony of her husband's unexpected return, and the resulting shock that leads to her death, highlights the precariousness of happiness and the danger of being too attached to it. Another literary technique used in the story is the use of symbolism. The open window in Louise's room symbolizes her newfound freedom and the possibility of a new life. The birds singing and the new growth outside also symbolize the new life that Louise can now have. However, when her husband returns, she shuts the window, symbolizing the end of her freedom. In conclusion, The Story of an Hour is a powerful and thought-provoking short story that explores themes of freedom, mortality, and the fragility of happiness. Chopin uses a range of literary techniques, including irony and symbolism, to convey these themes and to create a story that resonates with readers even today. Thank you for watching this video, and I hope you enjoyed it.